Thanks for being on the podcast, sir.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
I've seen your Twitter, and it seems like you're not a fan of a power slap. What can you say on that?
Oh man, yeah, it hurts me to watch this power slap. These guys, there's just so much wrong with it. They're not getting paid a lot of money, and there's no quick. At least in the UFC, it's an art. It's an art.
Mhm.
The defense is huge, just as big, if not bigger than the offense, is the ability to avoid submissions, takedowns, and especially strikes on the feet. And this holding your hands behind your back and allowing somebody to just rip a slap on your face for very, very little money while rich and powerful sit on the side and watch. It's like it's sick. It's kind of sickening, and the fact that they're taking time away from promoting guys like Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski who are fighting this weekend. And I have no interest in it. And it comes up on my news feed because it's being promoted by the UFC. It's just a horrible look. It's a horrible look. It's very tone deaf for a guy who we thought was as smart as he is in Dana White. But yeah, it's kind of showing that he just really was in the right place at the right time because it looks like he's trying to create the same thing again with this, and it's never going to work. It's not happening. People aren't going to get into this. I'm never going to invite I'd be the first one to get behind it, but it's just you're just watching brain damage. There's no heroic performances. I don't know. And if there are, you're not gonna get me to watch long enough to see it. It's trash to me. It's garbage. It's like the bottom of the bottom. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, yeah, but it does have some variety to it. I don't know if it's just short-lived because I've seen people sharing it all over the social media, and maybe they just upset that hey, this stupidity is happening, or maybe some people find it interesting. But I agree. I kind of don't see the art part in there. It's just
You see these guys just get knocked out, and girls they go straight down. There's people behind them trying to catch them. It's like, what the heck am I watching? I have no interest. I'm surprised that the Nevada State Athletic Commission, like, it puts everything in light that they're allowing this to happen, that the UFC president, who's supposedly cares so much about fighter health and everything like that, is just getting behind something where you're just getting knocked out. And he says people are going to be doing this anyway, so might as well have them on a platform and pay them to do it. And I don't know. I hope Dana's doing good and can get back on the horse with the UFC. It kind of seems like he's kind of drifting, and I think more time should be spent promoting fights. Like this weekend is a crazy fight, and I don't think it's getting it. I don't know. Has this ever happened before?
I don't know, man. It's pound for pound, number one versus number two. I don't remember. Champion versus champion. It certainly did happen, but those two, I don't know, man. I agree with you. Like, I'm confused. He did share some information. He said that it's actually tracking very well as of close to McGregor versus Poirier 3. I don't know what metrics he's using. I have a hard time believing that this.
I gotta think it should. These are the number one and number two pound for pound best guys. It should be trending even with no promotion, but with the promotion that it deserves, this should be the biggest fight in the history of the UFC. This has never happened before. A champion versus a champion, an actual champion, not an interim. He's the 145-pound champion is going up to face the 155-pound champion. Between the both of them, I think they both have 11 fight win streaks, 12 fight win streaks. Volkanovski is the one like 22 fights in a row. Islam 11 fights in a row. and the pound for pound, the number one and number two, Volkanovski, he's shorter. He's going to be coming stocky. He's going to be bigger than we've ever seen him. And Islam cutting down. He's a big 155er. So how is that going to play a factor in Volkanovski getting bigger? Is Volkanovski going to still have the speed advantage? We know he can carry the weight. He was I don't know. They say he lost like 100 pounds since his rugby days. And the stylistic matchup, I mean, Islam could very well go out there and do what he's done to everybody else, do what he did to Dan Hooker, do what he did to Bobby Green, do what he did to Charles Oliveira. I mean, it was the first round. It was competitive, but that second round, he knocked him down and he just hopped on him and finished him. I mean, he's done that now to his last 3-4 opponents, quick finishes. If he can do that against Volkanovski, that would be insane. But then Ken Volkanovski, he's shorter, he's compact, he's got a different build than the rest of the guys Islam's fought recently, and he's not really. It doesn't seem like he's crazy stand out in any one facet. Like, he's got great stand up, he's got great defense in jiu-jitsu, he's got great control on the ground. He's not like really known for one specific thing, I don't think, but he's just a winner. He's a guy that goes out there and just wins. So Islam is dominant as he has been versus a guy who's just a winner. How the heck is that? How is that fight gonna go? I have no idea.
I think most people betting on Islam. What do you think? Like, if you had to bet?
If I had to bet, I would bet on Islam. I think he's gonna have a size advantage. I mean, he's definitely taller and longer. It's going to be hard for Volkanovski to get inside on him. If he does, he'll have an advantage, but he gets inside on him, and that's right where Islam wants him. You can grab him and throw him down to the mat. I think his wrestling's great. Yeah, obviously, but compared to Volkanovski, I think his wrestling is just on another level, and yeah. This is one of those fights where you're just like, what the heck how is this gonna look? Like, you can't even picture the two of them tying up or exchange, being in the same cage together, because you really see them at two different weight classes and against two different styles of opponent. Everything. It's just it's one of those fights where it's one of those fights where you just don't know what's going to happen. Whatever happens, it's going to be jaw dropping for sure.
There were like few fighters who moved up division. Like, remember Rumble Johnson, who unfortunately passed away, like Kevin Gastelum. They moved up and start knocking people out. I'm curious if this Volkanovski move up, maybe it gives him like extra power that we haven't seen him.
One more day and we get to find out. It's going to be an incredible fight.
Speaking of Islam, he's from Dagestan, from the very close to where Merab from, right? And it seems like you and Merab had some fun in Tbilisi. How did you guys end up there?
He was going back to his home country. He wanted to know if we wanted to join him, and without a doubt, that was one of the coolest experiences ever. I mean, we were there for I think a week, and we packed so much stuff in that week. It was just eye-opening to see where he came from and what he comes from to move here, and it showed a lot about him and why he is the way he is. And he's a mountain man. He's a mountain man. He's you could tell he was at home when we were back in Georgia, and the people there, they respect him so much and they hold him in such high regard. He's such a celebrity there, as he should be. I mean, he's the kind of person that everybody should aspire to be like, to work as hard as him. He's the American dream. He came here and he had a goal to be in the UFC, and he just worked and worked and worked, and that's what got him to where he's at now. He's fighting for I think the number one contender in the world. So he wins this fight against Peter Yan. It's Aljo's number one and Merab's number two, and that you can't. How cool is that? Two guys that started training together on Long Island and really just helped each other get to the top. They just pushed each other so much, and really Merab, both of them, and Merab deserves everything that he's gotten, and then some, because he's one of the nicest, most selfless people. I always joke around that Merab, when you have a fight coming up, Merab is always grabbing your bags and he's carrying your bags, and then when Merab has a fight coming up, he's grabbing your bags and carrying your bags for you. That's just the kind of person he's like, Merab, you're fighting, man. Give me your freaking bag, and he'll like fight you for it. He's just the nicest guy. Can't say enough nice things about Merab.
His background is judo, I believe, and some folk wrestling, something like that, right?
Judo, sambo, yeah, yeah, yeah.
How would you compare his style of wrestling and Aljo's when you training with them in the gym?
Merab is definitely more upper body throws. He's his timing's great. He just drives through people. Aljo more of he'll tie you up more. He wraps you up, and it's more like you're in quicksand when you're with Aljo, and with Merab you're just getting freaking bulldozed. You know what I mean? It's more of a slow death with Aljo, where Merab he just picks you up and throws you. And Merab, I don't think Merab even cares if you get back up, because he'll just do it again, and he'll get 100 takedowns in a fight. Whereas Aljo will lock a hold of you, and he'll just take position by position by position, and suffocate you that way. Both of them are equally miserable, and you just get claustrophobic watching both styles. They're very different, but they both have the same result.
And if you were to not to choose a style, like what do you think is more appropriate for MMA? Is it sambo or wrestling? Because you yourself come from wrestling, right? That's where you started.
It's really how you use it. I think it's all up to the individual. I would say for me, folk style wrestling, because it teaches you a lot of control on the ground. You get a guy down, you control him. Sambo, judo, it's not as much control on the ground, I would say, but I don't know. There's submissions, more submissions in judo and sambo. Is there not in folk style wrestling? So, I don't think there's a right answer for that question. I think it's really just who takes it and applies it, the level of competition in NCAA wrestling. Like if you get an NCAA champion, that guy like Bo Nickel now coming into the UFC, it's going to be hard no matter what level of judo or sambo. I think that's just, there's such a deep pool of talent in the NCAA and Olympic level wrestling that gives you a little bit more than just the technique of wrestling. It gives you a discipline and a mentality that's hard to match.
You mentioned that upcoming fight between Merab and Peter Yan. Obviously, you're Merab's friend. You know that he's gonna win. There is no any other opinion about it on your end. But when he wins, I don't think he and Aljo would ever fight, right?
No, I don't think they'd ever fight. I mean, maybe if you offer them like retirement, $10 million something, maybe they'd shake hands and just do it, and then sit on their money for the rest of their lives. I don't know, but I don't think they'd ever fight. I think Aljo will go up in weight class.
That's what I thought too. Yeah,
Um,
I've read him saying that after Cejudo's fight, that's probably the only thing that makes sense.
he says he has a tough time making 135. He does it without a without a problem from the outside looking in. He just toughs it out and makes the weight. But he says that he's having a real tough time. And I mean, his frame is
Yeah.
just huge for that weight class. So
Yep.
I think he'll have success at 145.
Who do you think would give him most of the problems in 145?
I hold him in such high regard that I can't really see, like what he did with TJ Dillashaw. I think
Yeah.
he I just know I trained with the guy and I know what he's capable of, and it's like, and his stand up now he's getting confident in his stand up. His stand up's always been good, but now he's really getting confident to where he's doing some stuff in there that he's been doing in the room, and he's gonna start hurting people. He's definitely gonna start hurting them, and then that opens up the wrestling more, and then the wrestling opens up the striking more, and that's I think he's really, it's like the Aljo era is upon us right now, and he got through Peter Yan, who I think was his toughest
Yeah.
stylistic matchup in like both divisions. So Volkanovski's tough. I mean, but I think that he's just got a style that nobody, it's hard to train for. He's unorthodox, he's funky, and he's strong, he's big, he's long. He's a nightmare to deal with for anybody at any weight class.
And speaking of fighting, what about you? Are you officially retired, or are you still in the pool, or what are you
I'm
thinking?
still getting tested by USADA. They still show up at my house and freaking drug test me at like 7 a.m. sometimes. But mm, yeah, some days I wake up and I feel good and I'm like, I can do this, I can fight. But I'm spending so much time doing other things. I've got a real estate career that is just starting to take off. I'm really just hitting a good stride with that. And for the last 6-7 years, I've been doing that and fighting and kind of bouncing back and forth. You can't really do that. It's not beneficial to either. It's not fair to either uh, thing that I want to. I got to put it all in one basket, so to speak. So, and it's definitely sad, that I'm not going to be able to be, if I really want to do what I'm gonna do, and I want to be as successful as my goals are set in real estate. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take a lot of time away from me being in the gym and me being where I really enjoy to be. But I really do enjoy the business of real estate. So it's tough. I'm in like a weird spot right now where I'm transitioning out of the fight, but some days I wake up and I'm like, man, I could do one more. I could do another one. And then the next day I train, I do 2 workouts, and then the next day my back is hurting, my shoulders hurting, my knees are cracking. We never close the door, but it's it's barely open at this point.
But you would return for like a fight that makes sense, or you don't know yet?
If it was like a guy that was, like me, guy that's been around for a while, and that's you know, somebody that's, yeah, it'd have to be the right fight, that's for sure.
Would you return for Kevin Lee? He's back.
Nah, I don't know about that. It, it's I don't think he could ever win that fight. I don't think he could ever win. So it's just what I want to even like train for the guy that I beat twice. And I mean, I guess you maybe want to go out there and finish the guy, but I just feel like mentally I'm so far ahead of Kevin Lee. I mean, he's not. I don't see this being like a long lasted return to the UFC. You can just tell the way he talks. He's not. He just doesn't have. He has all the physical attributes to be a world champion, but it it just it just goes to show you what mentality in this sport is. It's everything.
Why are there some people missing that mental part? Like, is it the way you were born? Is it the way you were raised? What is that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of nature and a little bit of nature versus nurture. It's a little. It's. I think it's you got to be born with the ability to learn to do the right things, and then you have to be in the environment to learn if you were born with the ability. So, it's you got to have both. You got to have both, and for some reason he just can't pull it together. But it's yeah, you gotta be born with the ability to learn the stuff and have the mentality, and then you gotta really have been uh trained and pushed the right way coming up through through life. Really, it's the fight. The mentality in a fight is like, it's 50% what you've done in the last 10 weeks, and then it's 50% what you've done in your lifetime. You can't cram for a fight in 10 weeks, and you also you can't go back in time and change everything. So it's an interesting dynamic, the mentality of fighting, and that it just in combat sports, more than anything, it's just the most important thing is the mentality going into a fight, having the right mindset, being so strong, which is why um you know so many of these guys that were on top for so long and had these incredible win streaks, why it's such a feat, because like guys like Cal Sanderson, who went undefeated. Like, the guy didn't have one bad day. Like, he didn't have, he just, whatever it was, he pushed through it, and he was, whether he was sick or whether it was uh having a mental break. It's just, the guy's just so strong, that that's what makes combat sports remarkable. You know what I mean? Which is why, this, going back to this power slap thing, there's none of that. That's what makes mixed martial arts so great. Is like the all the factors that go into it. All the pieces of the puzzle are so important, and mentality is just as important as all of them. And if you don't have the right mentality going into a fight, it doesn't matter how big, fast, or strong you are, because you're going to make a mistake and do something at the wrong time, or face a little bit of adversity and bust like a pipe.
How big of a pressure the arena adding?
If you're prepared and you're looking to go out there and show everybody how good you are, it heightens you. It makes you better. That crowd, you enjoy it, you feed off of it. But if you're going in there and there's any insecurities at all, that the bigger the crowd, the more magnified that insecurity is going to be, and it's going to be brought out in front of everybody. It's there's no faking it in there. Whatever you have done in the lead up to that fight is going to come out. Whoever you are is going to come out. If you're Ray Longo talks about it all the time. It's like, whoever you are, there's no hiding it in that cage. If you're a bully, you're gonna try to be a bully, and then the second you get a little bit of resistance, you break down. If you're a hardworking person that just grinds, that's who you are. It's you can everything comes to light in that cage.
Yeah, I have to say that your fights have always been very entertaining, and I still remember one of the most like memorable moments is remember there is this, I don't know what's the name of it. It's Pain and Agony, something like that, when they show everything in slow motion.
Oh
Your
yeah.
fight with Kevin Lee, where you shouting same ow, it's such a freaking iconic moment. I'm like, man, that was good. That was really good.
Uh yeah. No, I would watch that fight after it happened, and I get like emotional watching that. It was, even after the fight, I remember walking back to the locker room, and it was just like, I almost like started crying, not because I was like happy or sad or anything, just because, like, I don't know, there was so much intensity in that win, and like, that was just a crazy fight, man, a crazy fight. And
Yep.
uh, and I knew it's so funny, like, he said, same Al at the weigh-ins, like I was the same Al, and I hadn't evolved and I hadn't changed. But he was actually exactly right. I was the same Al, except I had evolved and I had changed. And it would the fight, the second one, was almost identical to the first one, just drug out over 5 rounds. I came out strong. I put some good stuff standing up in the first round, and he got my back. He took me down. He had me in a couple of little bad positions, and then he broke in the first one and the second one. And yeah, it was just ironic. It was very ironic that he said same Allen. He was exactly right, and that's not what he wanted. That's not what he wanted to be.
What are some other fights where you look back and think of them as something memorable?
The Ross Pearson fight was
It was a great fight. Yeah.
that was yeah, for me, that was
Mhm.
like, that was the first fight where, first off, it was in Australia. It was the farthest you could go for a fight, and I was fighting Ross Pearson, who I'd watched on The Ultimate Fighter when I was just like learning how to strike. and eh, just held him in such high regard as I was like a guy that I'd watched coming up, and now I'm in the cage with them, and they lock the cage door. I see him in there, and I'm like, wow, this is really happening right now. This is crazy. And then to be in Australia, and you don't want to get hurt ever. You don't want to get hurt, but especially on the other side of the world. And we ended up staying after Aljo and I stayed in Australia for like a week or two, and just cruised up, went to the Great Barrier Reef. It was what a great experience. And yeah, that was like my first big. It was a co-main event. It was awesome. And then the George Masvidal fight was another one that was just memorable, and I think put me on the map a little bit when I yelled at the
Hey,
crowd.
booed me. You'd better don't boo me. That was a good one.
Yeah, no, it's good, man. It was a great fight. He hurt me in the first round, beat me up the first round. In the second and third round were close. Landed a lot of leg kicks. Kind of finished the fight chasing him around the cage, and um, it was just a testament to my hard work. I was like, there's no reason I should have won that fight. And some people still say that he won, and I could see either way. I told myself I was winning that fight. I put in so much hard work, and I was gonna die in there before I let him win that fight. And he cut me open. He hurt me. I was all but like knocked out in the first round, and then I came back, and you know the tide turned. Got the second round. He kind of took his foot off the gas, and he let me back in the fight. In the third round, I just had the heart. I was just going for it.
When you look back, are there any fights you actually lost that you're thinking, man, I wish I did something differently and I would have won this fight? Or like every single fight is like that?
Yeah, I guess every single fight is like that. You think of things that happened, you know, and you forget about those things in the fights that you win.
Hmm.
Those and you kind of think like, oh, looking back in hindsight, everything went well when in fact they didn't. But you just rose to the occasion, and whatever adversity came, you defeated it and got your hand raised. You think and you wonder what could be different if you could go back in time and do it again. And yeah, there's things in every loss that I would um, change tactically, um, and then in the lead up to the fight as well. There's always things that you say, oh, in the fight I should have done this, in the fight I should have done that, or oh, the day of the fight I should have done this, the week of the fight I should have done that. Yeah, there's so many things that go through your mind when you lose. It can eat at you.
So sometimes like I've seen lately that fighters lose not because they didn't fight well, but because of judging. Like, what's your take on all these big judging mistakes, and why do you think they're not fixing it?
For one, there are people in there that are just not. There's no reason that some of these judges should be judging fights. They are. It's like what blackmail do they have on the people placing them? You know what I mean? It's almost like they have a dirty secret on the people that pick the judges, and they keep getting put in the judges seat because they got some info on, because there's no other reason why some of these judges should be judging. They're just not knowledgeable of the sport, and they're also like buffoons outside in life. It's like a person that would walk down, like you would see, have a conversation with on the street and walk away shaking your head like, man, that's an interesting person that probably you wouldn't want to have power over your career, your future financially and just like everything. So that's the sad part, is that it's like, who are putting some of these judges behind that. I think there also could be more schooling And they should get paid more. I think it should be definitely, definitely. If it was a higher paying job, I think that more people would want to do it. You know, I think a lot of the fighters might want to do it. And I don't even really know exactly how much they get paid or anything, but I would imagine that if they got paid more, higher level fighters or people just in general would be able to do it. You know, if you're a successful person in some aspect, and um, you know, you're living a certain lifestyle and making a certain amount of money, taking every weekend off to go judge a fight is kind of difficult. But if they make it worth your while, I would think maybe that's a solution. And then schooling, it's got to be like a career. I think at this point it should be, with the amount of money that that the sport is bringing in for the state athletic commissions. They could put a little bit more behind the judging.
Can I ask you about Doug Crosby?
Talk about him.
Uh, It's not gonna hurt Aljo or anyone, because he might be judging their fight in the future.
No, no, I don't know if he's judging anymore. I got to think after this last stunt.
I mean, there was this noise around him, but then they didn't discipline him. I think he's not fired or anything.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, when I'm talking about people that shouldn't be sitting cage side, that's the. I think he's the biggest. He's kind of like. I think he's like pretty mentally unfit for the planet, let alone having somebody's career in their hands. I mean, the guy was on Chael Sonnen's
Yeah,
podcast.
I saw that. The holy shit, that story is insane.
Chael deleted that podcast, so there had to be something. Um, he said it's the things that make mixed martial arts. It's the in. What did he say? The mistakes are what makes judging beautiful, or makes the sport beautiful. The mistakes in judging are uh, what makes the sport beautiful. And there were only two things. Then he went on a rant. There were only two things in the world uh, that he has seen that are perfect. It was like the ping zing golf club. He was like, I've only seen two things in my life that are perfect, and nothing's perfect except for the ping zing and like Surfer Girl by the Beach Boys. I go, this guy's judging fights. The guy thinks the Beach Boys song was, and the Beach Boys are pretty freaking good, to be honest with you. But to compare, I don't even know what sense that makes. The ping zing, the guy saying the ping zing, it was the perfect golf club, because if you hit a bad shot, you couldn't blame the club. You had to blame yourself, and I was like, dude, this is whack. The fact that any athletic commission could listen to that nonsense and then put him in a spot to have a fighter's career in their hands is just like, what's going on? What did they do that Crosby knows about, that he's blackmailing them? Because that's the only reason. That's the only way he could get in. And I got to think Chael knows the guy's absolutely bonkers. The guy's got to know that Crosby's off his rocker. I mean, the ping zing? What the hell am I listening to?
Chelsea had told a story about, apparently it was eventually found out that it was Crosby. I'm not sure if you saw it, and it's on YouTube, that he was putting his friend in the hall. It was pretty crazy story. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Same thing. I didn't understand why he's even judging after this kind of stuff surfaces. But hey, but the reason I brought it up, because I know that your Ray and you guys are first flagging him for the commission or whoever before everyone else noticed that he's a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he judged my fight versus Masvidal. Two judges had it 29-28 for me. And then he was the only judge that had it 30-27 for Masvidal. And I mean, you might be able to, the first round, him, the second round could have gone to either guy, but the third round definitely, I definitely won a round of that fight. And for him to go 30-27 one way, and then you see every single card that's like that is like there's one outlying judge. It's Crosby. He's always the guy that's, and he always wants to talk to fighters in private. That's the thing. It's like let's have a public discussion with Crosby, and he won't go on anybody's podcast but Chael's. He's always saying, well, there's ways fighters go about talking to the judges in private about the scoring. And if any fighter wants to talk to me in private, they're more than willing to. Who's going to talk to that guy in private? I don't even want to be in the same room as the guy. But yeah, let's have a public discussion with Doug Crosby. Let's see that'll be that people will be shocked at that. If you have a public, I mean, I would love to see him get on the mat and demonstrate 5 moves. Let's see you do a double leg with the head on the outside, single leg with the head on the outside, single leg with the head on the inside. Let's give him like 10 moves to do and see what his knowledge is on fighting. I would love to see that. I can't imagine there's much.
One thing that you did really, really well outside of fighting is you became a star at UFC, and then you leveraged it for your real estate career. I've seen your like very funny commercials where you kind of leveraging it a little, bouncing from kind of drawing parallels between UFC and real estate. I saw your speeches, like I thought it was a recent conference or something. Tell me a little bit about your career as real estate. What do you typically do, and how do you get into there?
So I got injured right after the Masvidal fight in the UFC. I needed to have a pretty serious surgery. I got hurt on the Ultimate Fighter. I fought 3 times in 2 weeks on the Ultimate
Hmm.
Fighter, and I suffered a knee injury, a rare injury, articular cartilage behind my kneecap got torn off, and I had a microfracture surgery, which is kind of like a patch job on the cartilage just to kind of like scar it over and keep it smooth. But that tissue wore away, and I had to have an allograft surgery where they basically take part of somebody else's knee and plug the hole where the cartilage was missing in my knee. The UFC was they didn't want to pay for it. Dr. Davidson said that if I had this surgery, it was most likely I was never going to fight again, and they didn't want to pay for a surgery. I wanted to go to the hospital for special surgery, which I had done all the research, and I knew that this doctor, Riley Williams, who I wanted to see, was one of the top 2 or 3 in the world at articular cartilage injuries. I wanted to see him. I wanted to go to special surgery for this surgery, and the UFC was like, well, a special surgery is like twice as expensive as a normal hospital, so we'll pay half, because that's what at any other hospital it would cost, and you have to pay for the rest. That's what they said, and I was like, wow. I think a big part of it was because their doctor said that if I did have this surgery, I would not fight again. So why are they going to invest in somebody that might not ever fight again? Sure enough, I battled. It took like 6 months to a year before I had that surgery. I had to go out and talk to Lorenzo Fertitta, and I had to connect Riley Williams with the UFC, and he had to vouch that he believed I would be able to fight again and the surgery would go good. He's done it to all types of athletes and everything. Sure enough, do the surgery, and the connection that I made between the UFC and the hospital for special surgery now is the sponsor. They're in the cage. They're the sponsor for the UFC. So yeah, it's crazy how that whole thing went down, and it gave me a real perspective on how they feel about fighters, how they look at the fighters is like, put him out to pasture. You know what I mean? The guy, he's not going to fight again. Well, we'll pay for half the surgery. You know, and I had to like beg and scream and freaking. That was at such a low point in my life. I was like, I'm never gonna freaking. I don't ever want to have like a boss. I don't ever want to have anybody that can. You know, and real estate is how hard you work is the type of money you're going to make. As good as you are, no matter what you come into that business with, if you work your ass off, if you learn, if you study the industry and the market and meet people and show them. First, you have to be a person of character, of honesty, of integrity, hard work, and then you have to get out there and meet people and show them who you are. So you got to be somebody, and then you got to show everybody who you are to get them to trust you with, you know, hundreds of $1,000s, millions of dollars worth of real estate in a transaction that you got to have everything squared away, because one little mishap can be catastrophic when you're dealing with somebody's house, the most valuable asset they have in most cases. So it was something that I knew nothing about, but I knew that real estate was something that a lot of successful people learned. It's like fighting, but it's lifelong. Like, and you build and fighting, and you get up to the top, and then by the time you're there, you're making a lot of money, but um you're probably pretty beat up for all those years of training. But real estate, you can do, you just keep grinding, you learn, and it's like a snowball effect, and then you just keep going forever. And you can build in sales, you build a team, you build teams, you open a brokerage in investing. It just you parlay deals into bigger deals, and it's an incredible thing. And it's been fun. It's been fun too. I met a lot of cool people. I met a lot of crazy people. You think you're gonna meet a lot of crazy people in MMA, and then you get into real estate, and you're like, wow, it's very similar. There are a lot of parallels between the two that I don't think a lot of people realize.
When you talk about grinding, like grinding in terms of networking, putting your name out there, or going to the conferences, or reading about your market, etc. What is
Ye- Yeah, I mean, there's all those things. It's all those things. It's marketing yourself, improving yourself, so that when, if you're marketing yourself and you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to take long before people find out. And then if you know what you're doing, but you never get out there and meet people and market yourself, then no one's going to know about it. So you got to be creative in ways to be different. There's a million agents. There's so many real estate
yeah.
agents, just like there are so many fighters in the world. And what are you going to do to stand out? How are you going to, you're going to be creative? Are you going to be the hardest working person? Some people, they come in with a sphere of influence. They just know so many people. And then some people, they come in and they're just natural salespeople. I'm not really like a natural salesperson. I've gotten that down a little bit, and I would just work my ass off for people when my phone, if I have a client, my phone's always on. I'm always answering the phone, and gotta always be on, always looking for a little edge over the other agents to get. You're competing for the same listings. There's only a certain amount of buyers out there, a certain amount of listings, and I think it's like 80% of agents fail within the first 2 years. That's a crazy statistic. And I would imagine it's probably pretty similar in fighting. How many guys go out there and somebody's winning, somebody's losing, and you win, then you're fighting somebody else that won, and then you win and you're fighting somebody else that's won 3 in a row, and then you win the 4th fight. It's just like that. You gotta always be on your game, and it's a cool business for sure.
So your first closed deal, I'm sure you remember it. How would you compare it with your first one fight?
Hmm. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was more internal, like satisfaction, more than like your friends and family are all around like cheering you on. You kind of cheer yourself on. Um, it was cool. It was like, wow, I did this. I did something that was like, it's uncharted territory for me. It was my first fight I had wrestled. That's like me, I'm like I'm used to that, like, competition and winning and losing and warming up, going out there, the adrenaline's going. The first deal I did was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And thankfully I had a couple good mentors around me that guided me through the process. And they really did the deal. You know, um, I was learning through the process, and then I got done and it was like, wow. And that's the hardest thing, is to get your first deal done. Because once you get the first deal done, then you know the process, you know how it goes. And and yeah, and to be honest with you, actually, I think I could have done a better job finding some mentors earlier. It took me a long time for me to find good mentors, but that's a skill in itself. And just I think that's something that uh, some people never get. You never. I mean, I ended up finding Ray Longo and Matt Serra,
Hmm.
and that was a skill that I had, was seeking out the best coaches. And then I knew that I wasn't with the right people when I started out in real estate. And some people, I don't think they know. They don't know. You can work as hard as you want. You could work so hard, but if you have no leadership, it's like you're just driving 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. You're never going to get where you want to go. Finding a good mentor in real estate was big, because that's what helped me finish getting my first deal done.
And then you primarily focus on Long Island, right?
Yeah, Long Island, but I've helped people buy and sell all over the place. I've got a pretty big network of agents across the country that are really good. So when people they message me on Instagram and they say, I'm looking to buy a house in Atlanta, Georgia, and I got an agent out there. I got friends in all over the place. If you're looking in Vegas, I got plenty of Jason Griggs is out in Vegas. He's a Long Island buddy of mine. I know people from all over the place. So I've done deals all over, but Long Island's my home. Long Island is, I know it like the back of my hand. It's where I've grown up, where my parents grew up, and my dad coached football at 3 high schools on Long Island, and like everybody that went through that high school, he was a phys ed teacher. My mother was a college professor at one of the colleges here. So I'm ingrained in Long Island. My family and friends, everybody's from around here. Yeah, I just know this area so well. That's one thing is that I definitely might not have come into the business with a great sales pitch. I was never a natural salesperson. I didn't grow up as a salesman, but I definitely know the market well. That's for sure.
And the great thing is, like you said, you started 7 years ago, and now 7 years later, you have your investment properties. It's you're pretty well known in the area. It's just an amazing sort of some circumstances and work. Now you're not gonna depend on anyone, as you said. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I'm blessed that I had Uriah Faber as a coach on The Ultimate Fighter. He preached the importance of, really business and entrepreneurship in general, but he was very focused on real estate, and had a few people that have come into my life that are very successful in real estate, and they preach that to me. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to have found that avenue and uh, taken to it pretty well.
How has market changed over the past, let's say, year and a half, when Fed started raising prices, like the interest rates, mortgages went up? What happened with the market, at least in your area?
It kind of evened out, right? I mean, it's still pretty seller heavy still, but I mean, back like COVID, when those interest rates were in like the twos,
Yeah.
a house would go on the market, and there would be 100 people at the open house, line around the block. Everybody had their silly mask on, and you freaking one group would be allowed in at a time, and it would take all day. And then there would be 20 offers. 10 of them would be over asking price, and no contingencies on the appraisal. So they would pay cash. Like everybody had money to spend on
Yes.
houses. It was crazy. And it was difficult if like somebody wanted to buy and like upgrade it on a house. It was a juggling act, because you would sell the house in a day, and then you'd be freaking Gian Villante almost quit on me. I had to give him multiple pep talks throughout the process of selling his house in Long Beach and buying in Levittown, because we'd be just waiting on open house lines. And he was so funny. He would make fun of everybody on the line. The entire line, he'd be like, "Oh, look at this guy with his greasy ponytail. You real estate agents, you guys are all scumbag slime balls. You're still a slimy job, Al. He goes, you're just a slime." And then and then he's like, I'm out of here, Al. I'm leaving. He goes, I'm leaving. We would wait for like a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour on the line, and we wouldn't go anywhere. And he's going, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And his wife would be, John, relax. We got it. And she was pregnant at the time. We had to pull him off the ledge and keep. I go, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that happened at the house that he ended up buying. We had to keep him on track, and he ended up loving the house. He bought the house, and then at the closing table, he made fun of everybody at the closing table. And these are people like lawyers and bank attorneys that just they didn't know John like we did. His attorney did, and I did, but everybody else at the closing table, like, what the heck? He was like, all these real estate people make all this money. Where's all my money going? How much are the closing costs? What the heck? He goes, this guy, the title closer, what? He goes, what the heck? What are you getting paid $200 to walk down the stairs? Like, what are you even doing here? We were all dying laughing. His side, the people that knew him, were dying laughing. I think the other people were mortified. It was hysterical. It was such a fun process to help Villante. And but it was selling his house. It sold very quickly. We had 2 open houses. There was a line around the block. I ended up getting a couple deals in that area just because people saw how busy the open house was. I didn't really do anything. I just had an open house, and there was a million people down the block. People saw all this traffic. They saw my sign on the front lawn, and they called me and they said, "Hey, I'm looking to sell my house. I saw you had a crazy open house. You must be doing something right." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I sure am. Let's do it." But yeah, he sold his house in like a day, and then we had to find them a house, and it was like, are we going to be able to get something? I ended up, thank God, the people that were selling, they were like teachers, and I'm pretty sure they accepted his offer. That might have been even like a little bit less than the highest and best offer, just because they realized he was a teacher, and his story that he was in in the school district he grew up in, and his kids were going to go to the same school. So that kind of like played at the heartstrings and got the deal done. But it was a crazy process. Now it's a little more even. You put the house on the market, it sits on the market for a little bit longer.
How long?
And it'll be, I mean, it depends on how it's priced. If it's priced right, it could be a couple weeks, if it's you're still getting some of the houses in the lower price ranges that are going super fast, because they still need somewhere to go. Even with the interest rates high, you got to buy, first time home buyers, they're figuring out something, putting a rental in the basement or something. But in those lower price ranges, they're still going fast. I think that's starting to see a little bit slow down on the like the $1 million mark, over $1 million. Things are slow and sitting on the market for longer. But at the lower price ranges, if it's priced right, it's still selling pretty fast. I did not what it was back, maybe like a little bit into the COVID boom. That was crazy. But it was like once they opened up, everything was shut down in real estate for a while during COVID. And then once they allowed showings to go on again, that the interest rates were in the 2s, and things were just crazy. So now it's a little more even. Houses will sit on the market for a little bit, but you're also not fighting with as many buyers for the most part. In some instances, in price ranges and locations, it is, but it's definitely a lot more even than it was.
So this is gonna be your career going forward. Is it what you really like doing, or it's just for the time being? What do you think?
No, it's something that I think I put a tremendous amount of time into it. I like it's not really like work to me, really. It's making appointments and stuff like that's work, but going out in the field and doing an open house for me is like meeting people, and
Hmm.
you become friends with like a lot of people. Like you meet somebody at an open house and you take they take a you take a liking to each other, and you're like, well, you don't have an agent, I can help you. And then you help them to end up they buy a house, and you met them at an open house for a different house that they didn't necessarily want. But now you got a lifelong friend. And then I get calls from my friends all the time. Al, I'm looking to sell, I'm looking to buy. And like, what's better than that? Helping your friends out. You know what I mean? It's like that to me is like the best part of it is helping friends go like, Matt Pelican, you want to go see this house in Holbrook? Like, we'll go to Holbrook and maybe like grab a beer after. It's like, how cool, how fun is that? It's great. You know what I mean? Get to hang out with like his wife and kids that you probably would see like once a year, or like you'd barely see. So it's cool. It's great to keep up with old friends and make new friends, and just be out helping people. Like I remember when I bought my first house, and my friend's mother was my agent. It was a cool process, and we became close over that time. And then now whenever I see him, it's like we talk about the house that she sold me, that I bought the first house she showed me. She showed me one house. It had a detached 2-car garage with a bathroom in it, and I turned that into my gym, and it was just sick. It was like the coolest thing. I just told her, I said, I just need a big garage that I can make a gym. And the first house she showed me was like it was like the gym was as big as the house. It was crazy.
Do you think you would eventually move to commercial real estate, or are you pretty happy with dealing with residential?
I don't know. I don't know. It seems like a lot of it's just more numbers and math and less personal. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really me. I don't know. That's like that's like too uh salesy. This is more like I'm like a concierge. You call
Hmm.
me, I make the appointments, I make sure everything's smooth. You like the house, I get it for you, I get it at a good price. I might not get it at a good price. How bad do you want the house? It's like that's the factors that, if there's a bunch of offers on it and you really want it, we can get it for you, but it's going to cost you. Or you know or we're going to be able to negotiate this thing down, and we got a little bit of an upper hand here. Let's see what we can do and get you a great investment. And it's like it's cool, like, to make sure the process goes smooth, making sure all the puzzle pieces fit right, and getting to the closing. And that's like the best day. I get the check in my hand, well deserved, well earned, because there's always something that comes up in a real estate transaction. For the most part, it never just smooth sailing through the whole thing. There's always some kind of hiccup, or something comes along, and you got to calm the buyers or the sellers down, and let them know that it's all going to be good, and whatever happens is the way it's meant to be, and you got to make the most of it. And then you get to the closing table, and it's like, we did it, we're here, everybody's happy. And for the when it ends the right way, everybody gets what they want. And what's better than that?
So you mentioned earlier that you have friends and people basically contact you in Instagram asking about the house, even if they're in different state, and you connect them. Do you get commission for that, or it's just more like friendly thing?
No, yeah, I get a referral fee.
Oh, that's
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, then you
Yeah,
basically can advertise yourself all over. People from all over the country can contact you.
yeah, yep, yeah. I've done deals. I've done deals all over the country so far, and I've put
Dude.
some people in touch with some good agents, and they become friends, and it's just a cool thing. It's incredible.
So how should people find you? Is it Instagram only, or you have
Yeah, Instagram's the best way. I mean, that's the way to do it. If you find me on Instagram
yep.
at aliaquinta is my my name on Instagram, and that's it. Yeah, if you're looking to buy or sell anywhere in the United States, I got you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey man, thanks so much for the interview. I really appreciate it, and it's been a long time coming.